Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one of those quiet, powerful moments that doesn't explode with drama right away, but slowly builds until it changes everything. It's about dignity, respect, and how sometimes the calmest response can shake an entire room more than anger ever could. It was just another early morning at the corporate headquarters. The kind of building where glass walls reflected ambition, polished floors echoed authority, and every employee walked a little faster than they needed to. People here didn't just work, they performed. Every move, every word, every glance mattered. And then there was Daniel. Daniel wasn't like the others. He didn't wear expensive suits, and his shoes were clean but clearly worn from years of use. He worked as part of the cleaning staff, a janitor. Invisible to most, except when something wasn't spotless. He came in early, left quietly, and spoke only when necessary. But what no one in that building really knew was that Daniel's world didn't revolve around this place. His world revolved around his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily was the reason he woke up before sunrise, the reason he worked 2 jobs, the reason he never complained. Every night, no matter how exhausted he was, he'd still read her a bedtime story, still smile, still listen to her little stories about school as if they were the most important thing in the world, because to him, they were. That morning, things were a little different. Lily's school had unexpectedly closed for the day. No notice, no warning. Daniel didn't have anyone to watch her, and missing work wasn't an option, so he made a decision, brought her with him. She held his hand tightly as they walked into the massive building, her small eyes wide with curiosity. Everything seemed so big to her, the ceilings, the lights, the echo of footsteps. Stay close, okay, Daniel said gently. She nodded. For the first hour, everything went smoothly. I gave her a small corner in the maintenance room with a chair and some crayons he always kept just in case. Lily sat quietly, drawing little houses and stick figures, occasionally humming to herself. But children are children. After a while, curiosity pulled her away. She wandered into the hallway, drawn by the sound of voices and the bright lights of the office floor. Hats when it happened. On the other side of the glass wall, a high-level meeting was in progress. Executives sat around a long table, discussing numbers, strategies, and decisions worth millions. And Lily peeked just a tiny look, her little face pressed lightly against the glass, her eyes filled with wonder. Inside the room, a man noticed him. Harrison was known for being strict, sharp, and intolerant of anything that disrupted his environment. His suit was perfect, his posture rigid, and his patience very limited. Stopped mid-sentence. Seth's room went quiet, his eyes locked onto the small figure outside the glass. What is that? He snapped. People turned, and then, just like that, the attention shifted. Lily froze. She hadn't expected to be seen. Harrison stood up, walked toward the door, and opened it with controlled irritation. This is a restricted area, he said coldly. Who do you belong to? Lily didn't answer, not because she was being defiant, but because she was scared. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her dress. I asked you a question, he said, his tone sharper now. Before she could respond, Daniel appeared. Had been looking for her, his heart racing the moment he realized she was gone. I'm so sorry, sir, Daniel said quickly, stepping forward. She's my daughter. She didn't mean to disturb. Mr. Harrison didn't let him finish. Your daughter, he repeated, disbelief mixed with annoyance. You brought a child into this building? I had no choice today, sir, Daniel said calmly. It won't happen again. Mr. Harrison's expression hardened. This is not a daycare. This is a professional environment. Do you have any idea what kind of meetings happen here? Daniel nodded slightly. Yes, sir. I understand. Clearly you don't, he snapped. Because if you did, this wouldn't have happened. Lily looked up at her father, her eyes already starting to fill with tears. Daniel noticed immediately, and in that moment, something shifted inside him. Not anger, not fear, just clarity. Harrison crossed his arms. Listen carefully, he said, his voice loud enough for others to hear. If I see that child anywhere near this floor again, if she so much as peeks into another room, you're fired. Immediately. No discussion. The words hung in the air, harsh, final, unforgiving. Some employees looked uncomfortable, others pretended not to notice. Lily's small hand reached for her father's hand. Daniel didn't react the way anyone expected. He didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't raise his voice. Instead, he crouched down beside his daughter, gently wiped a tear from her cheek, and then he stood up. His voice, when he spoke, was calm, steady, but somehow powerful. She wasn't peeking to disturb anyone, he said quietly. She was just curious. She saw people talking and wanted to understand. Mr. Harrison scoffed. That's not my concern. Daniel nodded. I understand that, sir, he said. But she's 6 years old. She doesn't see titles or positions. She just sees people. The room behind the glass had gone completely silent. Now every word was being heard. Daniel continued, you said if she peeks again, I'm fired, he said. That's your decision. I respect your authority here. Mr. Harrison looked almost satisfied, but then Daniel added something no one expected, but I'd rather lose this job than teach my daughter to be afraid of looking at the world. The sentence landed differently. It wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive, but it carried weight, real weight. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Harrison's expression didn't change immediately, but something behind his eyes flickered. Daniel gently took Lily's hand. Come on, he said softly. They turned to leave, and as they walked away, something unusual happened. One of the executives inside the room stood up, then another and another, not dramatically, not all at once, but enough to be noticed at him. Harrison turned slightly, sensing the shift. The atmosphere had changed completely. What had started as a small interruption had turned into something else, something bigger. Later that day, whispers spread through the building about what had happened, about what Daniel had said, about how calm he was, about how right it felt. People who had never noticed him before suddenly saw him differently, not as just a janitor, but as a father, as a man with principles, as someone who didn't need a title to have dignity. Hours passed. Daniel continued his work as usual. He didn't complain, he didn't talk about the incident, simply stayed focused and kept Lily close by his side. But something unexpected happened again in the afternoon. He was called to the main office, not by a supervisor but by someone higher, much higher. The company's CEO. Daniel hesitated before entering, not because he was afraid but because he already knew what might happen. Still, he walked in calm, steady, just like before. The CEO was standing by the window when he entered. An older man, composed, observant, turned slowly. You're Daniel, right? Yes, sir, I heard what happened this morning. Daniel didn't respond immediately, simply nodded. The CEO studied him for a moment. Most people in your position would have reacted differently, he said. Anger, defensiveness, maybe even desperation. Daniel spoke quietly. None of those would have helped my daughter, sir. The CEO's expression softened slightly. And what would have helped? Daniel glanced toward the door, where Lily was waiting outside, showing her that respect isn't about status, he said. It's about how you treat people. Silence filled the room again, but this time, it felt different, not tense, not heavy, just thoughtful. The CEO nodded slowly. You're right, he said, and in that moment, something shifted again, not just for Daniel but for the entire company, because sometimes, change doesn't come from the top, sometimes it comes from the quietest voice in the room, and sometimes, all it takes is one calm reply to change everything. And what happened next? Well, that's a story that no one in that building would ever forget.